All right. So Feast of Trumpets, and thinking about from here when we get the first of the second harvest, things are starting to grow. There's this kind of not long gap, but there's a gap in here between these two where the fields are ripening, people are doing the work, they're going out clearing weeds, doing all those kind of things, which is a really interesting picture for us because we're looking forward to this next feast. Once we get past Shavuot, we look, okay, trumpets is coming, but what do we do in the meantime?
Preparation.
Prepare. You're preparing the fields, or keeping the fields, keeping critters out, keeping weeds out, making sure the wheat is going to come up right, getting rid of the tares maybe before they come up.
Your grapes are coming into season too.
Grapes are coming into season, yeah. So lots of stuff going on kind of in this interim.
You're working.
You're working. And that's going to be really key when we talk here in a little bit too, when we get through this feast cycle.
All your summer fruits like peaches and nectarines and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be.
Soft fruits, we call it in the business. Soft fruits, yeah. Soft fruits means, all that really means is a lot of throwaways. That's really all soft fruits means, because they get damaged a lot.
Don't
Bruised.
they say something about the harvest is white?
Yes.
West Texas, we understand that white.
That's a very good point. Yeah, we sure do. We understand that white all too well.
They have
Yeah.
beautiful cotton fields in Israel too.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, see?
Surprisingly, they have beautiful cotton.
There we go. Tying it all
Because they
together.
have to have everything.
Yeah.
We're going. They
Now
gotta have
also,
everything.
want to make just for kind of future things. So 30. Matthew 24:31, 1 Thessalonians 4:16, and Revelation 11:1. This sound precedes the return of our Messiah. So a whole different reason to look forward to this day, but a day you have to be watching for. Don't rely on everybody else to figure it out. You're just going to go along for the ride because you're going to miss it at that point. Be alert, be aware. Yes, Fred?
Also, when the trumpet sounds, that declares the end of the tribulation period, and it also declares that Christ is back.
That's right.
Announces.
Both.
Announces his return. Yeah, you're right. It does. It announces both. Yep. Dean and I were having this discussion earlier because the next feast is what?
Atonement.
Atonement.
Yom Kippur.
Because the fields are ripening. They're continuing to ripen. When we get down here to Tabernacles, what are we celebrating at Tabernacles?
The feast, the harvest.
The harvest.
But in between the harvest.
When do we harvest?
That's what I was going to say. When do we actually harvest?
I thought we had. There's a lot of
10
talk
days.
between the 10 days here of the masters walking in the fields. Could that be everybody's out in the fields harvesting? And that's,
Or
I don't know.
between the 4 days.
Would have
That's a short time.
No, it'd have to be before atonement because atonement is where the separation of the wheat and the tares happens.
Thank you. Yeah, separation's here. So the harvest is somewhere in this area.
Between Shavuot and.
Yeah,
Not going to be close to Shavuot because it's the beginning, so it's going to be somewhere. Just an interesting thought.
But it would make sense that trumpets would actually it'd be like at trumpets or right before trumpets actually, because that is the day of rest. It's that or your work's over,
Yeah.
pretty much. Now, not to say we don't have that 10 days of awe or whatever. I'm just saying that if you are prepared, which you're supposed to be doing in between anyway, then you're there because what
Yeah.
what do you receive at trumpets if you're ready?
Your robes.
Your robes.
Your robes,
So
that's right.
that makes sense. That trumpets is kind of like that last bell sounding at a factory. It's time to go home. It's time you're done.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point. Yes, Gabriel.
yeah, you were talking about the field, the king in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way that people look at that starts at the beginning of the 6th month.
Yeah.
And that's going to
Red.
go.
So it's way up in here.
So there's a 40 day.
So it's in
Below,
the gap in there.
Below, yeah.
below.
So
Month
that's
below, yeah,
fields.
month below.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so harvest could be starting up here, and yeah, I like the way you're saying that, Ty. When the trumpet blows, like Fred said, the end of the tribulation, harvest is over, the work is done, the king is coming. Get ready, get your robes. Yeah, so that's good. Yeah, I like that. All right, atonement. once a year, atoning for sin, right? Yes, no?
Yes.
What about the sin offerings that are given all year long? What do those do?
That's for the individual. That's for the nation, that's for everybody.
Aaron goes in and makes atonement for himself on Day of Atonement.
He has to before he can atone Israel.
Good point.
He also makes atonement for the altar and for the tabernacle itself.
For all the stuff. All right. And what did we talk about with Day of Atonement last week? What's it a picture of for us in this day and age? We don't have this temple to go to.
Dying to self.
Afflicting yourself.
Die to
That
self.
sense of-
Because you're going to do what? Through Messiah, you are going to approach,
the altar,
yeah.
The mercy seat.
the mercy seat. Yeah.
What's that? Yes, Gabriel, and then Fred.
So you remember last week we were talking about how nobody would go into the holy place. I guess we figured out that it was the holy place. I thought it was the whole tabernacle, but and no one would enter the holy place once he was making atonement for everything on the Day of Atonement. And so following this whole model of what's saying how the end of the age comes about. So like Fred was mentioning, when the seventh trumpet is sounded, and that means the king is coming, and that means the tribulation is over, and now wrath is going to be poured out. So that being said, it's interesting because if you go into 15, Revelation 15:8, this is right before 16 when all the bowls are poured out. It says, "The temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no one was able to enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed." And so you see the same picture there. Anyway, here you go.
Oh, thank you. Fred.
Okay, in Israel, they have a custom there that the 2 weeks before atonement, they all call all their friends and enemies and everybody that they have a grudge with. That there's that let's say you did me wrong or I did you wrong, either one. I call you and try to make a compromise,
Make amends.
make amends. And even if though you don't, I still attempted it. So so for 2 weeks they say that they're just, the lines are eat up with people calling other people.
I bet they are.
And that is something that would be nice if we did stuff like that.
Would be really nice is if we didn't wait till 2 weeks before atonement to do that. If we did it immediately, which is what Scripture says. Just saying. Jim.
You know, it's funny though, looking at the menorah and the balance between them, how they're chiastically structured. It almost, in with that same thing, and it reminds me of the same sort of preparation to getting rid of all the leaven that you have, almost looking at that as like leaven in your life. Atoning for all of those things that you're preparing before the Day of Atonement, you're getting rid of all of the leaven before that first fruit starts.
Yeah, and on the like the chiastic structure, that's what that lines up with. Yeah, excellent. Yes.
Well, also, see, they don't believe that if they don't do this, that their sins will be atoned.
They believe if they don't do it, their sins won't be atoned? Or?
Right. In
Okay.
other words, they have to do it to get their
Right.
sins atoned.
We all ought to believe that.
Yeah.
Concern. It says if you have anything between your brother,
Yeah.
your prayers won't be heard.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do that before you even come to the altar,
To the altar.
to offer your offering.
If you remember.
So it's exactly, that's a scriptural concept. Waiting the 2 weeks till 2 weeks before isn't the best way to handle it, but the concept is there, yes.
Because what if they're
Yeah.
out of town?
Can we get the American elections and Israel elections moved to those 2 weeks?
I think we should use to start a petition, because you got a bunch of people that'll sign that one.
I missed it. What did it say?
Can we get the American elections and Israeli elections to happen during that 2 weeks right before there? That'd be good. All right. So atonement, and want to give you a couple other scripture references just about approaching. Ephesians 3:12. Hebrews, make sure to write the right one down. Hebrews 4:16, pictures of approaching the throne through Messiah, through his power, through his mercy, through the grace that he gives us to do that. Because then, in Revelation 20, specifically 11 to 15, is some judgment going on. All right, then tabernacles, to complete our feast cycle, is the what number feast in this list?
Eight.
Eighth.
Eighth.
In this
Beginnings.
list.
Right, seventh, right.
Yeah, new beginnings.
Beginnings, yeah.
We got the harvest, we got new beginnings, we've got the wedding feast, we've got
A party.
a big party. We're celebrating the harvest. We've done all the work. We've had a couple of weeks to get ready for it, to get ready for this. We get all our stuff together, get our tents and our heaters and our deep freezes and stuff, and get them down to Plains and get ready for this party. Jimbo.
You know, and it seems to me that that one is really the most obvious one that seems like a rehearsal. Even though all of them are supposed to be rehearsals in a sense, this one really does. You know, you're supposed to live in sukkahs, you're preparing for this time, even when they looked back on it as their exodus and they were living in sukkahs. It's really clear that you're supposed to look forward to a time when you're going to be living out of sukkahs again.
Yep.
And so it really stands out as like one of the
Yeah.
most practical practices you're rehearsing for this
Yeah.
time.
This one, and what's different about it, at least in my mind, is it's 8 days,
It's rejoicing.
it's rejoicing, it's set apart from all the rest of the world to be with everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, unleavened bread is something you do in your home. We do get together with people, but it's not an all day, every day, spending time together, talking about these things, rehearsing these things, thinking about this.
The first
in the end.
4 is for the individual, themselves. The last 3 is for everybody, for the nations.
Yeah.
The nations.
Exactly.
It is, but atonement's
Yeah, atonement is,
it's an inward deal. It's not necessarily just an outward.
But you still gotta go to your brother.
all, the other 364 days of the year should be thinking about that, but yeah. Yes, Fred?
During the 7-Day War,
Yeah.
a lot of those tanks were going, attacking the enemy. They had sukkahs on.
Really?
They did, yeah.
Really? That's cool.
That's pretty
During
cool.
the tabernacle,
That's a good covering.
They had the 7-Day War, and a lot of them actually carried their sukkahs on their tanks. So that-
Hey. I like that.
Kind of camouflage,
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What is that, a tent attacking me? I ain't gotta worry about that. All right. So there, in a real big nutshell, is the feast cycle. And we do that every year. We kind of go through all those things. But what God kind of showed me this week, I'm going to rewrite them up here with a little bit less space in between, because I want to get them all on the board. So we need a bigger board. We need a building that we can put a big board in. Like this size would be just about right.
Yeah.
That would do it for today, I think. But this one, we're getting there. Because what I was originally going to do this week was look at like a summary of kind of what you and Alan were talking about. When you mentioned it, it's like, oh, that's a really good idea. Like a summary of Leviticus, like 11 through 20, all these different levels and progressions and things like that. So I kind of started going down that road. But then, of course, as God has done, I said, no, that might be good, but I got something even better. So check this out. So what I started looking at was this feast cycle. And I started thinking about it in terms of a life cycle. Like the life cycle of the believer would be a fancy title for it. And I looked at it in a couple of different ways. First of all, from, like, we're going to put, let's see. Hebrew. I want to put Christian over here, because this is where I bet probably pretty much all of us started something like this. Being in churches, being in different denominations, home studies, whatever it was. And kind of what God's kind of been showing me with this is, as a Christian, how many people started their walk by somebody inviting them to church, inviting them to a Bible study.
Yeah, on a Sunday, right?
Going
to Sunday service.
Started by going to church.
Yep.
Maybe going to a Bible study during the week. But you're kind of your weekly appointment, if you will. You just took my marker. It's okay, I got another.
They'll bring it back.
That's all right. I don't think I'll need that one. All right, so a lot of us probably started here, going to church every week. Then maybe we started to hear the message a little bit, hear what the preacher was preaching, hear depending on what denomination you're in, the fire and brimstone, the damnation, or the everything's hunky-dory and peace, or something in between. You know, we kind of get a little bit of everything, right, Vic? Yeah, there you go. But you realize something. It's like, you know what? I think I need to answer that altar call. I need to go down and say that prayer. I need to go be baptized. Whatever it was in whatever denomination you're in, whatever it looked like. It was some kind of making a commitment, whatever it looked like. I say, could have been a baptism, could have been just saying a prayer, could have been sprinkled. There's lots of different things. And specifically with baptism, I just want to go there because this is what, what I came from, which growing up in nothing made it kind of easy to make lots of changes. You're identifying with the death, burial, and resurrection of the Messiah, correct?
Yep.
Okay, we all kind of are on the same page there. Then, what do? Well, we kind of keep going to church.
Change our lifestyle.
We keep going to Bible study. We maybe live a little differently. We maybe don't. We may try to. We may think we're living differently, but really we're like...
Try and get some of the sin out of your life.
You're trying to get a little bit of sin out of your life.
Probably.
Probably, maybe. Because the preacher told you how horrible you were.
You're under grace.
Yeah, you're under grace. That's going to be a good point. Tina?
Go to the altar and pray every Sunday.
Go pray every Sunday. Go light candles. Go do, whatever it is. You start to you do something. You're not really sure always what you're doing or why, because everybody else is kind of doing it. That's just you just kind of go with the flow.
He's got it.
What'd you say, Ty? Come on, share it.
So you go to bingo.
You go to bingo. And you hope your number doesn't come up or does come up. All right. So you start going to church, and at least where I was the message we were getting was one of two things. You're going to die.
Burn or burn.
You're going to die and go to heaven, or hell, turn or burn. Or, if you're still alive, you're going to be raptured out. When I wrote this down and was looking at this, was kind of like, what's all that about?
Nothing in between there.
Nothing in between.
Well, no.
You start going to church,
No, wait.
you hear a message, hold on. You make a commitment, and you keep going to church, and then you're looking to either die and go to heaven or be raptured. There's no, again, this is where I was coming from. There's nothing in here. Looking back, when I was in that, I thought, oh, I'm doing the right thing because I'm doing my check mark. I go to church on Sunday. I go Sunday night. I go Wednesday night. I go help with VBS. I do all these different things.
Well, you forgot the two big ones,
Which two big ones?
Christmas, Easter.
Christmas and Easter.
It doesn't matter.
That's nothing.
That's not part of the religious system that I'm talking about.
It is not.
Yeah.
It is not.
That wasn't like, if you don't celebrate Easter, you're going to hell. We never heard that message.
Yeah.
Sorry, we never heard that message. That was part of what was brought in to the religious system, but that's not what I'm talking about. But yes, that was there, Easter, Christmas, Valentine's.
Some families
Do all
had
those
some
things.
weekend they went to church.
Some families, we've had a friend that said, oh, we have to do Christmas because that's the only time that we ever get together with our family. And these are Hebrew roots believers, Messianic believers. And to put it in perspective, they eventually told their, what was he, 8, 9 at the time? Well, the 9-year-old son that Santa Claus wasn't real. This is a family that put up sukkahs in December in their front yard, put a nativity in the front yard during Sukkot. Just to show you where they were. Double-minded kind of an idea, a thought process. Anyway, so they tell their 9-year-old son that Santa Claus isn't real. You know, his question was, is Jesus real?
Natural conclusion. Sound reasoning, huh?
Solid reasoning. Kids have good BS meters. They can figure stuff
I never thought to
out.
ask that question, but it was in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
You know, well, Easter Bunny isn't real either.
Yeah, well, the Jesus guy can't be real,
Yeah.
you know. So anyway, back to where we're going with this. Okay, so
One question.
Yes,
The
one
only
answer, no.
The only one that and again, it was probably never framed like you were talking about. Easter wasn't framed as
As a part of-
salvation issue.
right.
But I did kind of become aware of the fact just this year that they do count 50 days to Pentecost.
Who did? 40.
Who counts?
Oh,
The
it's
church.
40?
40.
Lent,
Isn't
they
there
did the
another
40
10?
day.
But it's the 10 days,
Of all,
there's 10 other days there, because it actually winds up being 50 days from Easter.
No, until Easter,
It-
Until Easter.
until Easter.
Yeah, Easter ends the,
40-day cycle.
No, but
Lent
there's
stuff.
another period, they're still counting up to Pentecost.
Isn't that the 40
Yeah,
days of Lent?
yeah, that's true. That's
They're
right.
still counting, that's what, and I just heard this, I just made aware of this. And again, obviously, I don't think it's probably ever been, was never framed as a salvation issue, so it still is in that
in this
gray
kinda-
area. But I'm.
because there are some churches that don't do Easter stuff.
Right, because I just saw, but again, I saw this modeling or this
Yeah,
copying.
somebody in the back.
The
Burley.
Pentecostal do that, Pentecostal.
Okay.
But I just wanna make a real big point that I think is really important, and it's the word that's really in this whole segment that really is mentioned a lot. It's described on how you do it. But it's the word holy, okay? And so what is the word holy mean? Set apart. But we don't use the terminology that it's really kind of dedicated as well. It's set apart to be dedicated. So we set ourselves apart unto God. But on the other hand, we could set ourselves apart, make ourselves dedicated to something else. And
Very
that's a
easily.
very